I don't have a big lot like yours.
I'm trying to find the one you can write. I've sent a couple of emails already, a couple of letters.
You know, I thought.
We're going to go ahead and get started. So first I want to say, everyone, thank you for coming to our training today. I want to take a minute to introduce you to our presenter, Mike Malcolm. So for many of you who don't happen to know, Mike is part of the Tony Baroni team. They are an expansion team. So Tony has his main hub office is in Tampa, and then he has expanded out to other market centers. And so he's expanded out to Orlando as well. And Mike is the director of expansion. And so what he does is that he creates more expansion opportunities in other market centers that he feels will be a good fit for what they, for their mission, vision, value of their team and their growth of their team. He has interviewed many different market centers in our area, and they have selected our office to expand to. So we're super excited about having the Tony Baroni team coming to expand our market center. And so he'll talk to you more about their team and their expansion and opportunities and so forth as well. One of the things is that when we were going through the interview process and the selection process, we just really had a really good alignment of providing value to our clients, meaning you guys, and then how you guys provide additional value to your clients in the area as well. And so that was just a really good fit in terms of future opportunities, just being in alignment towards Keller Williams International and then locally as well, and what it means to really kind of every agent has a dream, a mission, a goal, and how are we helping being in sync with creating that. So without further ado, I'm going to let Mike talk to you more about his team and then get on to the class. We do have Bank of England, just going to let you know how the day will be set up. Sit wherever you guys want. Bank of England will be coming with box lunches. And so we'll take a break and deciding how y'all want to do it. It will just be a break for you to get your lunch. We can have a working lunch. So choose to give you guys a little break like that. And then the second part will be the 201 part, the wealth building, right? So we want to get y'all to a stable place and then build upon that. You should have your handout. For anyone who doesn't, who comes in afterwards, you can just either find it, just have them raise their hand, I'll come to them and get the handouts.
Thank you.
So welcome aboard.
So yeah, just first of all, I love your market center, the people that I've met so far, and I really love your location. Boating is my number one hobby that I do, and so anytime I see water, I get excited. I think you've been to our market center in
Yep,
Orlando.
many times.
We've got another unique view. When I went in my first office that I had at the market center, I looked outside and saw a volcano because we're right at Volcano Bay from Universal Studios. And they told me when I was setting up my desk, they were like, "Now you'll hear screaming in there a lot, and don't worry about that." But you know, so yeah, right by some of the big water slides that they have. But I do like your view better. But appreciate you having me in today. I will start off with just a little bit of background on our team. And I will, if you see here too, based on the Paul Cornu class, how many of you know Paul? I understand he used to be the OP here. So he came to our market center, it was probably about 18 months ago or closer to 2 years ago. And he gave a very similar presentation. And you know, light bulb on for me. I mean, I'm sitting there just taking a lot of notes. I don't know if he would recognize the class anymore, but it's certainly based on what I got from his class that day, because it just really, you know, really struck me. And when I was listening to it, it was like, not only am I going to go, you know, tell my wife everything I know about this and let's make some goals today, but it's like, as a realtor, I should be teaching my clients this. I should be teaching my brother this. I should be teaching all my family this, because it's really, I mean, you know, 401ks are great, stocks are great, but they can be boring compared to some of these things. And I've been a real estate investor before, so this just kind of hit right what I needed to hear. So I hope it will the same for you as well. The 101 part is kind of the basics. You know, a lot of times you start thinking about, okay, I want to start investing, and then you get a credit card bill and you see 21% interest, and you're like, I got to take care of some things first, right? So that's kind of why we do this 101, because sometimes if you happen to be in a place, which most of us have probably been at one time or another or still in, you know, it can be hard to get out of that. It kind of gets you in minimum payments and high interest, and you can just kind of feel like you're drowning a little bit. We got a little plan to get you out of that as quick as possible. Then we got the exciting point about investing. And so, you know, when you look at the investing part, the 201 part that we'll cover after lunch, you know, we probably have like a 2-week course on it. We'll try to do it in 45 minutes or an hour. So it's going to be very basic, and it's got math in there. And so a lot of people not real big fan of math. So we're just going to keep it super simple. But the concepts are real there in everything that we do. So we'll have that and talk about some big numbers that you can have. So if you're my age, there's still, you know, hope for big retirement doing it this way. Or, man, if I had studied this class when I was 20 years old, then, you know, work would have been optional after about 10 or 12 years. So, you know, it's really cool no matter where you're at in life. So just a little bit of introduction about our team, then I'll move on with the class. This was taken right around Christmas of last year. I think there's 14 of us there. We're now about 18. Can you tell the guy from Orlando there in the middle? He's got ears on. Nobody else has ears on, but we've actually got some additional help in Orlando now. We actually, a lot of people know the Tony Baroni team by the promise. If you've taken Bold 2.0 or Bold Pivot, the last class of that, they introduced Tony, and I think in Bold 2.0, they showed a video of Tony talking about the promise and how we use that on our team. And I'll tell you, that's real. What the promise is, and actually Mike Higgs, if you've been around or know a lot of people at Keller Williams nationally, Mike Higgs is actually the person that came up with the promise, and Tony just expanded on that and talked with Mike and got permission and did all of that. And Tony's done more, but basically, and that's a lot to read there, so I won't read it, but basically every time we meet with a client, so if I'm sitting down with Joe, I met Joe earlier, and I'm like, hey, Joe, I'm Mike with the Tony Baroni team. Thank you for coming to our buyer's consult. Before we even get started, I'm going to make a promise to you. I'm going to promise to give you the best real estate experience you could imagine having. That's a pretty bold thing to say, especially right at the beginning. And then I'm going to have you check up with me. As a matter of fact, as you go from team member to team member, they're all going to make the promise to you. Then at the end, we want you to grade us. We're going to ask you how we did. We don't only want you to tell us, we want you to tell the world by giving us an online review. And then I'll say, Joe, you know, would you be willing to do that for us? We give you a 5-star experience. Would you be willing to do that for us? Joe said yes. So, and also during the process of this real estate experience, you just talking about house hunting, you'll run into somebody else that'll say, you know, we're thinking about selling our home too. So if you hear somebody talking about that, I'm going to give you such good experience that you'll be compelled to say, you need to call Mike Malcolm, the Tony Baroni team, Keller Williams, because he's been great for me and he'll help you too. And then I'd actually like you to get their phone number and have them call them. Is that something else you're willing to do? And so we do that, and so that's how we start every transaction. So then at the end, we can remind them of that conversation and ask them to give us, give us a review online. And so if you look, we've had over 2,000 homes sold and 2,000 reviews. So that sounds like everybody that we've ever sold to has given us a review, and it's not quite that way. We've had others give us reviews that, that maybe we've partnered with during the process and all of that. But we, every Tuesday morning, like right now, and I'm not a part of it this morning, but we have our Tony Baroni team team meeting and we go through all of our closings that we've had in the past week. And so Tony will say, Mike, okay, I see you closed 123 Main Street in Orlando last week for $385,000. How did that go? Yeah, it went real well. They're happy. Did they give you a review? It's like, not yet. They said they would. He's like, okay, you gonna follow up with them? Yeah, I'll follow up with them. Did you get a referral from them? Yeah, actually I did. They get, you know, so every transaction that we do, Tony asks us if we got a review, if we got a referral on it. So
Wow.
we know we're going to be held accountable. So that's how it works. So in the last 12 months, kind of a running total, we've sold 319 homes for 106 million, and so far just in 2021, 268 homes at 94 million. So kind of on pace for 400, which was kind of a stretch goal for us this year, but looks like it might be in reach. So we do cover now all the way to the Atlantic coast as well. And so as we add your market center, then we're going to expand down the West Coast here as well. Tony's in Gary's top 100, so he gets a lot of meetings with Gary, interview with Gary, and that benefits, you know, our team a bit, but it also, you know, he loves that, and that gives him a lot of one-on-one time with Gary. And actually for Mega Camp, he was invited, Gary's top 100 was invited to Austin for Mega Camp, and said he could bring a +1, so he invited me, and made all my reservations. You know, that's not going to happen now, but maybe next time. But yeah, so we've got just several accolades throughout Florida and the nation, and even, you know, Orlando. Our last year was our first year in Orlando, and we were in the Millionaire Club 4 times, and top 3 team units, and 4 in volume there. So we were pretty proud of that, and we have added somebody else there now as we go. So a little bit about me, and then we'll get into the course itself. Real estate is actually a second career for me. I studied computer science at Georgia Tech, and really founded my own software company, and I did that for 25 years. During my owning my software company, my accountant, you know, when things started going well, she's like, you need to invest in something. So I kind of, you know, I looked at all the investment opportunities out there, and I chose real estate. So in 1995 is when I bought an office building, mainly because my software company we kept moving around because we kept growing, and so I just bought a building bigger than we were, and then we had room to expand. And then as it turned out, as technology became better and internet became better, we actually needed less people, so we were able to contract a little bit on our office space, and then, you know, bring in other tenants, which, you know, I like. So then we had a vacation rental in Utah and residential rental in Atlanta. We bought 50 acres in Utah. We were known in this small town as the developers for Georgia. I was like, I'm not buying it for development. You know, I'm buying it. I was looking for 1 acre. It had a great view in the mountains, and I just wanted to build a log cabin there, maybe in the retirement, but it was a small town of about 3,000 people, and I bought it. It was like a farm. They knew I wasn't a farmer. So they're like, you're either a farmer or a developer, and I'm like, well, actually neither. I'm going to build a log cabin. And as it turned out, we found another house, and we bought it, and we ended up subdividing the 50 acres, and there's a big development there now. So we turned out to be the developers from Georgia. But and then I sold my software company, and became a realtor in 2009. We moved from Utah back to Chattanooga, and so I moved there. Didn't know a soul in Chattanooga. It's just on the Tennessee River. It's close to Atlanta, where a lot of my family was. So I'm close to my family, and I'm on a river, so I'm happy. And so, but I didn't know a soul, and you know, within the first year starting out, I needed help. I was working 7 days a week, and you know, started building my team there. We were the River City team, and then that was the team that I was able to build big enough that I was able to sell that when I wanted to move again back to Atlanta, but I expanded real estate into Atlanta and then went back to Salt Lake and started a team there. So for whatever reason, I mean, I really think you do the best if you happen to know your area really well. I kind of wish several times that I started, my wife was a realtor as well, and she now does contract to close. She does it for a team in Atlanta. And, this guy is just great personality, went to high school there, started selling real estate out of high school, knows everybody. He's got a big business. And I was like, yeah, I wish maybe I could have done it that way, but I tend to keep going into new areas and not knowing anybody and having to build a business. So I guess I've learned a skill set there, but it sounds easier to do it.
Many of us here have come to, like, raise your hand if you're new to the area when you started real estate. So we're in the same boat. Yeah.
It works, right? And so just how many have been doing real estate maybe a year or less? Okay, yeah, fantastic. All right, then maybe less than 5 years. Yeah. And then over 5 years, I guess. Yeah. Well, very good. Well, very good. Excellent. Well, good. Well, it's good. That's good to know. I guess now it's creeping up, being about 12 years for me. But maybe any questions before we get started? That was just kind of an introduction to get us going, so I could get to know you a little bit and you get to know me a little bit. All right. So, this is maybe different than just another, maybe the classes that you're accustomed to coming to the Market Center for and teaching you how to sell real estate and all this. This is more we're going to talk personally, and I won't be asking personal questions or anything like that, but this will be just something that we're talking about our own lives and how we can look out for us after we've helped our clients and everything. So this is how we can do things for ourselves. So, why would we want to talk about starting a wealth building class with the
If you don't have any money, you can't invest it.
That's right. That's right. It's just really important. And I mean, there's again, that initial slide, or maybe at the top of your page there, a couple of those pictures, and they're on the beach with their hands up in the air. It's kind of, trying to relate a feeling of, I just feel free, and so that's what debt free can do for you. I'm hitting go for my next slide and it's not moving. So
Can I ask a question?
yes, please.
I'm curious, because I looked at this, when you're saying debt-free, I'm seeing credit cards and car loans and things like that. Are you also referring to mortgages?
I am not, I think, certainly a mortgage is a debt, right? But it's really a good kind of debt because real estate is an investment, right?
Okay.
If I buy a car, I can buy a super nice car. Is that an investment?
No.
Better be super.
Most of the time, yeah. Yeah, now actually I've got a nice truck that's just depreciating every day, but maybe, as you talk to people that are super financially sound, they even like to buy cars that do not depreciate. So, for me, it's like a 1950 Ford truck is what I'm looking at next. And that's actually something that I could buy and have fun with, be in parades and just enjoy it myself and my family. And then, it'll possibly be appreciating and all that. But, in the real estate business, we have to have cars too. But, my truck's a fairly new truck and it's paid for because of this, that still is a goal. So if you get the debt-free mentality, then you can pay off loans that you have on your autos, and then you can take the money that you were putting into that and start saving up for the next one. And then you may not get the new Porsche that you might really want right now, but you could get a nice reliable used car that you could drive around. So that's the decisions that you make. And so there's no judgment here, because I like nice things as well. And so,
Do you think that I need to stop sharing the screen to reboot? Is that?
see, I'm not even getting a, cursor. Oh, there we go. There we go.
You got it?
Yeah,
Okay.
you're back. All right. So here's some words from Dave Ramsey, and he talks about that he's worked with thousands of folks over 30 years, from billionaires and millionaires to broke people. And he shows that all data shows that debt is the biggest roadblock between people and wealth. So, you know, Dave Ramsey's certainly a respected name that we all know. Having no debt makes it much easier for you to become wealthy and more generous. So wealthy is one of those terms that we probably all think something different when we hear it. I mean, when I was at the height of the debt that I had, you know, wealthy would be not having a credit card bill or something like that. And then we, you know, maybe the more wealthy you get, you meet a lot more people that are more wealthy than you. And so it's not even about comparing, it's about really, maybe people throw out some definitions of wealthy. What would you say that is? There's no right or wrong answer, because like I said, it's all what each of us think.
Wealthy to me would be to have enough money to fund your life mission.
Perfect. Yeah. So, you know, so even wealthy, we might even see some, well, I'm going to get to it in a couple of slides, so I'm going to hold what I was going to say there. So how many of you have heard of Mo Anderson or know? Okay. That was, yeah, most of us do. And if you've been around her or seen videos of her, you love her. So she was the former CEO and chairman of Keller Williams, one of the first people that Gary worked with, and has done tremendous, and probably the most caring and giving person that I know. I saw an unbelievable economic opportunity. If I could make that company successful, then I could financially do the things I've always wanted. Things giving to many of the causes she supports, such as education, arts, and the plight of the elderly. So when you talk to Mo or some others about wealthy, they just want to be wealthy so that they can give away. Mm-hmm. And they just, you know, that's their picture of wealth, that I don't have to worry about bills. I don't have to worry about what I'm doing here and for my family. I can get past that so I can be the generous person that I want to be, you know. And I look at my family, and it's my wife and I, and then I've got a couple of grown daughters that are married and got grandkids now. But when I think about our base family of 4, you know, my wife and my youngest daughter, biggest hearts. They just, you know, if we were thinking about something, they're like, what could we give? What could we do? And then, you know, myself and my older daughter, just our natural tendency is like, getting this money, what can we buy? What can we do? You know? And so we had to learn from my wife, you know, and that taught us some value in those things. So, you know, if you were debt free, what are some of the passions that you could pursue? You know, that's just kind of a good thought provoking. You're welcome to share if you want to, but if not, if you just think about that, that's fun to think about. You know, if I was more getting towards financial freedom, what could I do? Who could I help? You know,
I'm grateful to say that, you know, it's all relative, but really I'm there today.
that's awesome.
Yeah. And the goal is just to continue the growth, you know, and again, it's relative, like you mentioned before. Previously, it would be not to have a credit card, but all my needs and more are met, and that gives me the ability. And I have a bit of your wife and your one daughter, and you and your other daughter and me. It's like 2 sides of the brain, and they come together because I am passionate about both.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. It's you know, and you just a lot of the people in this world that are wealthy and great, you see them doing a lot of good things. And so that's, thank you for sharing that. So are you in debt or are you broke? And a little caption there. I'm so broke as I sit there, I'm drinking my $6 coffee, and that price has probably gone up since we've done this slide, right? So, you know, if you have $1,000 in the bank and you're $5,000 in debt, is that better than only having $10 in the bank and no debt? So are you in debt or are you broke? And, you know, really being broke is an upgrade over being in debt. So, but it's a stepping stone as you go there. So just some things to think about as we go through this as well is, just to your question about real estate, is that an expense or investment? For this class, we're going to call it investment. So we're not talking about getting rid of your mortgage at this point before you start anything else. As a matter of fact, as we get into the 201, we're still going to use mortgages as we go through, but it's kind of like the minute we get a mortgage, then in your mind, you're thinking, okay, things feel like I want them to go, then we're going to be paying off that mortgage. But a mortgage is a great tool to use when you're using it for an investment. So basically, these are just some you know, words of wisdom as you go, really putting off today's pleasure for future gain. And you really need a plan. So if we look at this, kind of the tale of my two daughters too that I mentioned before. It's a cool thing. Rich people stay rich by living like they're broke. You know anybody like that? You know anybody that's very rich or wealthy? Well, we consider, but they're like cheap. You know? I mean, really, and you're kind of like, that's probably why they got all that money.
Yeah.
And then broke people stay broke by living like they're rich. So my oldest daughter sold her first home. She's, you know, my wife and I and my youngest daughter, we're like about as city people as you can get from the big city, used to doing, you know, going to plays, doing all these things. My oldest daughter started showing horses at 5 years old, you know, went through, just wanted a farm. So, you know, buys her second house. And it's on a 5-acre farm. She gets horses and goats, chickens. And I think she paid $300,000 for the house. 5 years, she said, Dad, I just called Dave Ramsey because he likes you to call in a radio show when you pay off your debt. And I paid off my house 5 years, had a 30-year mortgage, paid it off in 5 years. But, you know, she's definitely cheap, you know. I think still today, if I dropped a quarter, she would grab it and put it in her pocket before I did, you know. She, you know, people made fun of her in high school. She's walking across the parking lot and there's a dime or a nickel or penny. She would go out of her way to get it. And she just saves everything and doesn't spend very much. And my other daughter, she makes a good living. Her and her husband both have great jobs that make a lot of money. But when they go on vacation, they're always at the Ritz. They're renting a yacht. They're doing all this. And then, you know, then they're like borrowing money for tolls, you know, on the toll road too. If it comes in, it goes out. So two different people, love them both. But when I read this for the first time, I was like, Mindy, Christy. and you know, and so, and really I'm somewhere in between. I mean, we all look at Mindy, the top one, and we're like, couldn't live like that. I mean, because, I mean, they've got 4 kids. They're awesome kids, love them. They don't know any better, but all their kids, I mean, all their clothes come from, you know, hand-me-downs, or people just give them stuff because they know they're not going to buy anything new and all that. So just real extreme, but all 6 of them in that family are as happy as they can be. So I'm not knocking it. And they just sold their house for $300,000, which actually they thought it would be more convenient to buy their new farm first of 11 acres and then sell their other house after they move out, because they didn't have a mortgage on it. They were able to have that flexibility. So they got a mortgage for the $450,000 house, but then paid $300,000 on it after they sold their house, and then, you know, here just 2 or 3 years later, they're probably getting close to getting it paid off. So wonderful, wonderful example to me of doing that. So those are things to keep in mind, but really what we're talking about here through as we go through the day, if you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you'll work till you die. Makes sense, right? With debt, you spend money when you're sleeping. Right? Debt never sleeps. Well, I'm gonna have to get good at just making up things to talk about when my computer doesn't forward to the next screen. You can see I didn't put all the slides in here. I just put some of the ones in there. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through and we're gonna look at a family budget example. And that's back on this page, and it gets into small writing here. But what we're gonna do is we're just kind of looking at a typical budget of somebody's family. And if you'll look at this, we're basing it on they have $5,000 worth of income. And then we're listing all of their expenses and then their debt. Can anybody read those tiny numbers when you look on there? I don't know if you just need reader glasses or if you need magnifying glass for that, but to tell you a little bit about it, long story short, is they make $5,000 a month, and then with just their expenses and their debt, they're like negative $1,000 a month. And hopefully none of you are in that or have ever been in that, but I have. And a lot of times that's the reasons for the credit cards as well, that you end up having to finance or buy groceries on credit cards or do whatever, because it's just real hard to spend more than you make without using some kind of a credit in there. So if we go through and look at the step 2 on that, and really what I'm going to do is just go through and get to the last page at one point. But what we're going to do is we're just saying we're going to be like consulting with this family, that we're going to look at their monthly budget, and this is what you would do with your own budget. If you have a spouse that if it's just you, you look at it with yourself. It's just you and your spouse. You look at it together and say, okay, if we're going to do this plan that we're talking about to be debt free, then how are we going to do that? We're going to just have to make a plan. We're going to have to trim. And let me see here. While I'm waiting on that, I am going to just teach. If you do the one right here, let's see, the one that says step 4 at the bottom. What they looked at, what's their budget, is said, okay, we got to get back in control. We're spending more than we're making, so what can we cut? And so they just went line item by line item and just said, okay, well, if you look at the top, our number 1 expense, giving, and there's a 0. It's like we don't have money to give. So that was one of the things, we wanted to change. Then you look at taxes. We as realtors, we get paid when we sell something. We don't get paid all the time. And so if we have a spouse that makes that has a salaried income, and we put that into the mix too. And so you're looking at, well, in this example, they're paying $1,200 a month on taxes. It's like, well, how do I change that? I mean, how do you pay less on taxes? Well, this is talking about out of your monthly budget. So basically you can, again, if you're just trying to make this part of the plan, you can just go to your employer and add more deductions to where you're actually, they're taking out less out of your check. And then you can actually, gain a few dollars a month to be a part of this plan. You don't do that just to spend it, but if you're doing that as part of the plan to debt free, then you can even trim a little bit on your taxes. The next one is home mortgage. That's really kind of a non-negotiable, right? Can't call our bank, or we don't want to, and tell them that we need to pay less on that. So that one's not going to change. But if you look at food, you look at clothing, you look at transportation, entertainment, medical, some of these other expenses, we can look and find a way to trim down each month. And so that's what we've actually done in this example, is we've gone through each item and just say, how can we trim down to get ourselves back in a budget? And then if we concentrate on the bottom part of debt, which is Visa, MasterCard, I've got like a Kohl's bill, Home Depot bill, Dillard's, Lowe's, auto loan 1, auto loan 2, and credit line with their interest. So we got all these bills. So this is what this Carnegie family, this is their snapshot. So try to do it enough that when you look at it, you're like, good, I'm not that bad. But you may be the same, you may be worse. And a lot of you raised your hand first year in real estate. I've had first year in real estate about 4 times now as I moved to each city. So I know that feeling, and I know maybe the closings not coming in quite as quickly as you thought they might. Those are times in my life when unfortunately I had a nest egg and I kind of went through it, and then I was looking at a couple, things that I needed to get out of. So never feel bad if that's where you're at. But what we did here, and I'll get kind of to the point here. So let's go to the last page, the debt payoff. This is the money. This is where we're going to look at it and look at the, I'll reboot the computer during lunch. So it'll be there for the next class. So basically, the long story short of this is with all the trimming that we did on the previous pages of the budget, Carnegie family got back to where they were making $275 now more than they had debt and expenses for. So they're like, okay, I've got $275. That's something that I can start retiring debt. So this sheet right here on debt payoff, I'm going to make sense of that for you, and then you need to hold on to that. And if you make your own plan, you'll plug your own numbers, your own debt into here, and you'll see that it really works. So what we're going to do is, I know when I've had credit card payments and minimum payments, $75, you hear all the stories about that. So, my wife or whoever's doing the bills at the minute say, hey, we're going to pay $100 instead of $75. Just makes you feel better that you're not paying the minimum payment and you won't have it forever. So what we're going to do, though, is we're going to trim back down. Part of the trimming down was we are going to look at minimum payments on everything. And then we're going to put our debt in order of the least amount of balance to the greatest balance. Okay. So when the Carnegie family did this, if we look at one, in order of payoff was Lowe's. They had $450 balance on there. I don't know what the payment was, it probably could have been 20 or 30 bucks a month. But what they said is, I've got $275 now. So I'm going to pay $275 a month on Lowe's until it's paid off. And so if you look at that, it does say that the interest only or the minimum payment was 30 bucks. So they're paying $275 instead of 30 bucks. So guess what? In a month and a half, Lowe's is gone. Okay. So that's good news. Lowe's is gone. So now where we look at, let's look at Home Depot. We got a $600 balance. We were paying $30 a month to Lowe's originally, but then we got the $275. So now we basically have $305 a month that we can put on our smallest bill. So they're going to hit Home Depot. Meantime, they're paying the rest of their bills and their expenses, but they hit Home Depot up and they're paying Home Depot $305 a month. Well, 2 more months, Home Depot's gone. Okay, so now we're feeling good. We're making progress, right? Does this make sense to everybody what we're doing? All right, so you probably don't need me to explain every number and every detail from here out. But basically, we're 3.5 months in, Home Depot and Lowe's are gone. So now we're at Kohl's, balance of 1,050. Add all the numbers up, we're paying $330 a month. 3 months, Kohl's is gone. So 6.5 months into it, 3 of our credit cards are gone. So now we got Dillard's do the same thing. So we're now 12 months into it. 1 year into it, we don't have a balance with Lowe's, Home Depot, Kohl's, and Dillard's. Now, one of the things, if you had your magnifying glass, you can see that their auto loan 2 was to be paid off in a year anyway. They were in the last 12 months. So time to go buy a new car? Hope not, right? Hopefully that one's good. So now auto loan 2 is paid off and we're paying $225 a month on that. So I don't know the last time I had a $225 a month auto payment, but there you go. But you know, anyway, that's paid off. So we got 5 things paid off 12 months later. So now we look into it, MasterCard, some of our larger balance items, but we paid off MasterCard. Now, see, we're paying like, by the time we get to Visa, we're paying $795 a month to it.
So, like, why go smallest balances first rather than highest interest rates first?
Great question. And again, this is one method, but this method gives you those incremental quick victories, you know, to be 3 months into it, say, I don't know Lowe's or Home Depot anymore. Man, now we're excited. And that excitement's going to keep me going when the next shiny object pops up that I want to buy, that I don't have the money to buy, that I might typically pull out the credit card for. So that's why. Since we're going to pay them off quickly, it's a way to do that. But you're right. You know, that if I see 21% and 25%, that's going to be gnawing at me. You know, why don't I knock that one out first? But if I start on that one, it's going to take a year or so to do it, then I may fall off the wagon. So, but that was a great question. Anything else you're thinking of as you're going through this? Okay. Again, we'll talk about a happier topic after lunch. We're going to talk about investing, and that's magic. It really is. What I'm going to show you today is more than just let's go buy real estate and make a lot of money. You know, it's going to be detailed on some stuff that's pretty cool. So anyway, you follow that pattern all the way through to where even you're paying off the loan and you're debt free. And now you got an extra $12.50 a month. Okay. And this, so it's like, what are we going to do with that $12.50 a month? Well, stay tuned for 201 because that's what we're going to do. So, any questions on this? And I apologize for the technical snafu there to where we didn't see it so much on the screen, but I think, you know, covering that last page is what we would have covered. We had the screen anyway. That's the main point about it. Any questions or any thoughts?
Because it's paying the debt, but it does not, on a social point, it does not address the fact that why do they have all of those credit cards? And we have to change kind of the habit before that's great.
Yeah.
But if they don't change their habit and they're paying those off, they're still buying things. And we don't know if these are not things that were necessary.
Yeah.
You know, I think the use of the credit card is a cultural thing. And I mean, if you don't have the money, you shouldn't be using the credit card, but that's not the culture that exists about that. People are not looking at credit card like it's money that they have to spend, and they find it so once when they're doing this process for 20-something months, they better not be using their credit card.
Yes, that's
Correct.
exactly right.
Well,
And I will go ahead.
if you go through the day Ramsey course, you cut off your credit card first day. And that is
If you want to do that, you can't use your
you have
credit
to cut
card,
off your card.
Yeah.
right?
So so that's, you know, that's from the negative point of you do that where you won't have that temptation again. You want, you know, you just get away from that. And then, you know, Even when I heard this course, you know, less than 2 years ago, I was just starting in Orlando, going, you know, before I was getting my first closings and all of that. You know, unfortunately, I had started up again, you know, out of necessity. I had a couple of homes in Atlanta that I flipped homes too, and I had those on the market. So before they came through, I was back into those things. But when I heard this, you know, the motivation was not only this, but the motivation was the 201 to investing. And I was like, this has to go so I can do the investing. So I had to get my wife on board. You know, if you got that dynamic, if there's more than one of you, then it takes the team, right? Because if the other one sees a shiny object and wants it, and you've got the goal of, hey, you know, I should be tucking that money away from my investment property that I'm going to buy, and they're wanting, you know, a trip to Europe, which can, you know, COVID's helping, you know, our travel expenses, right? Keeping those in line. But, you know, but no, fantastic point, fantastic point. So has to be a goal. So hopefully what I'm going to show you even in step 2 here after lunch is going to be enough to motivate you to do that. It did for us. We're certainly, you know, even though I've done investments in the past, you know, gearing up to do it the right way. I didn't know the plan that I'm going to show you. So I was just, you know, that's the good thing about real estate. A lot of times you can just go and just if you're investing in real estate, then you know, there might be a plan better than what you're doing, but real estate's got a lot of advantages. So I did well, but it's like, man, now that I've got this plan, you know, to do even better. So let's take a break for lunch, and then I'll get this straightened out, and then yeah, we can come back and we can start on the other. And yeah, keep talking and asking those questions and those great comments, and we'll go through them.
Just a special.
Oh, is
We're
it?
used to technology problems.
Okay. Well, yeah, I usually don't have problems in PowerPoint.
Stop this one, mess with it.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Good.
Closing it?
Yeah.
Shall we bring our lunch in?
Yeah, let's do that. You want to do it that way?
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Let's have mine. Yeah. Okay.
We'll start there.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's great. That's great.
Okay, so now we're recording. And are you good?
Yeah, it pops up something saying it's being recorded, and I have to get out of my screen to okay that, so that's, but we're good. We're good.
Okay. Yeah, isn't that where that does that now? It's like,
Yeah.
I guess there was something legal in Zoom.
You know, and I think that's what started it last time, and so now it's acting up a little. It's kind of like that's what triggered.
Really?
Yeah, probably should have not been in the PowerPoint when I did that. So I'll take just a second to see what I can say.
You shared your screen, right? There we go.
Teaching, I used to tell students, because a lot of times, you know, if you're on a third lunch, you don't have lunch until 2 o'clock. It starts at 4 o'clock in the morning, especially as a middle school. And I would tell students, you can eat anything you want, but if it annoys anyone around you, that's the problem. Don't give a mask, don't put stickiness on the table, and don't make noise that other people around you will start. So I would always tell them, if you're gonna have potatoes, that's perfectly fine. John's not watching that. Every so often I ask him to come directly off the table. And I'm like, do you see it? Because I'm not seeing it. Middle schooler. Yeah. And then he just look at it, really? Really? Uh-huh.
Yeah, you can.
And then look at,
Only so much.
yeah, no way.
Make yourself.
Can we unshare it?
Yeah, yeah, so I'm gonna get back in and then see if that works, so.
How strange.
Cause I was flipping through the screens and then when that popped up.
When recording popped up, it made it all weird.
Yeah, that was weird. So I just logged out, I'm gonna have to get back in totally, but
Okay,
we'll
tell
see
me
if
when you're
that
back
does
in.
it.
Is it extending your desktop or is it sharing your actual screen?
I'm doing
Because
the
I'm wondering
screen
if that's
share.
what he's doing.
Oh, yeah.
For the second, for the extended desktop,
Wait when you share. I'll show you
Okay,
what she's talking
because it
about.
may very well be that.
Yeah, I've done that before where it freezes because I share the wrong thing. It looks like we're supposed to share one thing.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna look into that.
Everyone, Jimmy Beavers is joining us today.
Did you send out a reminder about the committees?
I'm good today myself, right up to you. Did you text me the time? Or screen share? Okay. I want to admit you,
Okay,
then I'm gonna give you rights, but don't do anything
okay.
when it comes to screen sharing. Okay. Share your screen. You do this one, right?
Do that or that.
Mm-mm. You do this one.
Okay.
Alan, there's your.
Yeah.
This one?
That screen right
Right here.
Yeah.
And then I'm doing play. There you go.
All right.
I like that. Are they close to the rear conscious?
Is it working?
Oh, yeah. I have to tell you, the fifth grade,
Yeah.
it's pretty good job.
No?
He and that. You see it?
Not working?
No, and I can do it without hitting the play button. I can imagine that being the problem, but with the play, it takes away my mouse.
Oh.
See, even moving the mouse, you can kind of see it flickering over there like it.
In here. Look at this
Yeah,
one here.
okay.
And it's- I'm going backwards.
Oh, exactly.
Forward now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all good, relish it.
Yeah, see if that'll work.
Yeah.
Okay. See, now it's working, but I'll try that and see
Yeah,
see if that works. Okay,
Yeah.
Okay,
all right.
we're back.
All right.
Technical
you ready to
difficulties.
go?
How many breaks does it take to go to work?
That's right. All right, so just as we had a plan to be debt-free, we need to have a plan to create wealth as well. So what's passive income? Probably heard that term before. What's passive income?
We know we love it.
We love it.
I love that one.
You can be on vacation and still make money.
It's still coming.
Anybody look forward to the 21st of the month here? Yeah, so Keller Williams gives us opportunity for profit share. And so the 21st of the month, you know, we can get a good surprise if we've, you know, if we have people in our downline. So that's one thing, one way to have passive income. Well, real estate can provide another. Anybody think, I've given a couple examples. Anybody think of another?
Stock market.
Stock market, absolutely. So it's when we, you know, maybe when we use the money that we've made to make money for us instead of spending it all. And now that we, you know, have learned about becoming debt free, maybe we have a little bit more money to spend. And that's the thing I love about real estate, that even if you're just starting, that you can look a year in advance and, you know, stick with it, then you got the opportunity to change something very quickly. Once, you know, it's a good market right now, it's different. They're all can be good markets. I remember when I started real estate, it was a buyer's market, you know, and, you know, I just thought, man, if it could ever be a seller's market, but I love that market. And then, you know, because there's no problems with that market, right? And then you get into a seller's market and you find that unique set of challenges there. So every market has its benefits and challenges. So you think passive income is something good for retirement? And does retirement mean 65 anymore?
No.
It could mean 25.
It can mean 25, it sure can. It can be, maybe another word for retirement could be financial freedom. You may still want to work, you probably do still want to work if you love what you're doing, but at least you've got the financial freedom that you're looking for. So the first step to financial freedom is to eliminate the debt. I did go ahead and put except the mortgage. And so, you know, because that's, again, a great goal is to get rid of the mortgage as well. But, you know, if we get rid of our consumer debt, then we're ready to go to step 2, which is create a 3 to 6 month reserve. And then this is a little bit about what we were talking about when we talked about what is wealth. You've got survival. So if I, you know, if we go back to the Carnegie family that we looked at in that example, we were showing that they had a $5,000 a month income. And when we trimmed their expenses and eliminated the debt, they had a $1,250 left over at the end of the month. So if we look at that, their survival, if we set up passive income from them and they're making $3,750 a month, then they're meeting their survival level of financial freedom. Now, I imagine once you're there, and you're like, well, I want to do more than survive. You know, now that I've got some time and some freedom, you know, what's next? Well, then what's your lifestyle going to be? What are your hobbies going to be? You know, what income do you need for that? If I like, you know, I told you one of my hobbies is boating. So, you know, I could just think of some things past survival that I would need for a boating lifestyle. So, you know, so if it was $3,750 before, then I might say $6,000 a month or $7,000 or $10,000 a month is what I would need for my lifestyle level of financial freedom. And again, we're talking passive income, so we certainly have the time now. So what do we need for that? And then even the 5th step could be legacy. So once you kind of start thinking I'm more than surviving and I'm enjoying my life, but now that I'm playing with my kids and grandkids, you know, how neat would it be to kind of set them up as well? And so, you know, that is more of a legacy step to financial freedom. So those are those are fun things to think about as we go through on this journey. Any questions or comments on that? All right, let's do this. So what's the plan? What we want to do is to buy 10 income producing properties over 10 years. Okay, that's the plan that I'm going to show you today and put it there for you. What if it took 12 years? Would that be a failure? What if you only bought 7 properties? Would that be a failure? No. So this is just a plan. There's tons of plans, but this one's pretty good. And this is a goal that my wife and I set a while back to do. Purchase $100,000 homes.
Not anymore.
All right, boy, last year this would have made a lot more sense, wouldn't it, than this year? All right. So one of the things is that first things that we'll see is that the numbers, and it's not impossible, but again, they decide that, you know, what was made sense to buy a $100,000 home. A year or two ago, maybe we need to up it by 50% and buy $150,000 homes. Still may be a laughing matter at that, right?
Yeah.
May need to be $200,000 homes, but you decide, you know, on what you're going to do there. For this example, I like 100,000 because it's a nice round number. And so we'll do that. So again, there's going to be math and we're going to try to keep it simple. So we're going to simplify it. All right. So we're not, step 2 is not, okay, go save the $100,000 and pay cash for it. All right. So we are going to plan on, with this investment, we are going to get a mortgage on it, but let's get 15-year loans on it. All right, for a $100,000 home, $1,300 per month rental income. Anybody deal with rentals? How does that sound? How do those numbers sound? If you found a $100,000 house,
I can do that.
think you'd get $1,300 a month for it.
I think we can get $1,300 a month for any homes right now, but what we can't do
Yeah,
is the
it's nice that-
$100,000.
It's nice that rentals are going up. Now,
Yeah.
when I took this class a couple years ago, 100,000 was still low, but it was, you know, I went and found some. And most of the ones that I found were getting about $1,000 a month rent,
Mhm.
maybe 900, okay, at the time. So I was like, don't work, you know, but that's not it. It's not that it didn't work. It was like, I didn't find the right $100,000 house, okay? So as realtors, you think we've got a little insight into maybe finding a good deal, a jewel property. Again, good deal's not as easy to find these days, but do you think we might have some? If I was only gonna buy one home a year, I think that's the thing about it. If I've got a year to buy a $100,000 house, and that'll bring in $1,300 a month, then I don't have to do it today, and I don't have to do it this week, so I can look. I was teaching this class, and I'm on the ALC in our market center, and the guy in charge of finance on our ALC was in the class too. And he shared an example. He's got a team, and he mainly does listings for his team. And so he said, "Can I share a story?" He said, "I was on a listing appointment, and I looked at this home. It was a small home, older home, but I'd come up with, it looked like it would sell for $130,000. So I went on a listing appointment, and they're talking with the client. And the lady said, you know, she was an older lady and just ready to get rid of, I think she's going to move in with her kids or something. And so she said, "Yeah, I just want to get rid of it." He said 130. She said, "That sounds great to me." She said, "You know, actually though, it'd be great if somebody just come buy this thing. You know," she said, "I'd probably take 100,000 if somebody just bought it, you know." And he said, even though we'd only met for an hour, we had a great relationship together. And he said, "You know, really, if you're serious, for 100,000, you know, I think I would be interested in buying this," because he wanted to start some investment. She goes, well, if it's you, I'd probably sell it for 90,000, and laugh. And so he's like, are you sure? Cause I can get you more money for this house, we have to be a little careful with that. And, so she's like, no, I'm happy to sell it for 90,000. He's like, well, it may take me a little while. I gotta get my financing. I gotta go, but he said that shouldn't be a problem, and she's like, well, if you, I didn't know if you had cash or not, but if you, I've always heard it's a pretty good idea for owner financing. I'll be glad to finance it for you. So, just kept getting better, right? So the guy bought it for 90,000 and he immediately, got 13. He said, guess what? I'll get 1,300 a month renting it out now. And this was a couple of years later. So, again, not that that would ever happen again. He's looking for that to happen again. But, that was the one situation. So that's as realtors, we certainly not only get a slight discount on when we buy property for our commission, but, we might have an opportunity if we're really looking. Sometimes when you're not looking, you may pass up a lot, but when you're really looking, you see something. I know we're talking about gators. I live near the chain of lakes. I'm a little bit out from Orlando, and so have you guys heard of the Dora Canal ever? There's Lake Dora, and it's just a canal. You feel like you're in the middle of the jungle. There's cypress trees and there's gators and all of that. But we just thought it'd be covered with gators, and you just see them all the time. Well, we found that when you go through there, they're there, but you really have to look for them. And we found that now that we're really looking for them, we can spot them almost every trip we take down there. So I think of that when I think about finding the good deal on a home. That, if you just go and buy a house, you set a price range like it's your primary residence, that's completely different than finding the ideal investment property. So I think if we go out there and look, we can make these numbers work. So even if we said, $200,000 home that we needed $2,600 a month, or say you only get $2,400 a month, again, you're not failing. This is just the numbers we're going to use for this example. So, if you're getting a loan, it's not your primary residence, then you're probably not going to do FHA and 3.5% down, right? You're not. You're going to have to come up with 20%, 5,000 closing costs. So what you've got to do to make this work is your real estate business or your combined income, if you're in a family, is going to have to finance down payments and closing costs, as we talked about buying a home a year. Okay, so on a $100,000 home, what's that down payment and closing cost going to be? 25. Okay. So again, you got to have that. There's your next goal. You're debt free. Now you're gonna, that's going to be your entree, and so that's also why it's one home a year, because that's sometimes it takes a while to get that. So you're saving up for it. All right. So here's where we're going to get into some generalities. If we look at a 15-year loan financing 80,000, about 4,000 a year will be paid down on the loan. Now, is it the same in the first year as the 15th year? No. But for our example, okay, we're going to just say it's going to average 4,000 a year. So we're just going to use that as a number, and it'll work out. But you'll see we're not going to have these loans for 15 years anyway. We're going to be more like my daughter. Just by following this plan, they're going to be paid off sooner. So that number's going to work real well for us. Positive cash flow on the 1,300 month for a $100,000 home that you owe 80,000 on. It's going to be 4,800 per year for property. And again, that's a general number, so we're not counting that the air conditioner broke, you got to send out a repairman and all that, keeping it simple. But just as many negative got-yous that we've got, there's tons of positive got-yous in there that we're not considering too. But just follow with me and you'll see that. So another thing we're not going to do with these properties is we're not going to take the cash flow and the profits off of these property and put it in our pocket. Okay, we're going to just use it all to pay off the loan. Okay, with me so far? Okay, so all down payments and credit cards come from primary income. So, yeah, but, so again, like I've said a few times, this is a simple exercise. So we're not considering, you know, you've probably already thought of examples that, especially if you own properties, you're like, well, you're not thinking about this, you're not taking that into account. And you're right, you know, you're gonna have more costs than we're talking about here. On the second thing is we're not considering a lot of things that are gonna positively impact. So like in this example, I'm gonna take you through what each year of a 12-year plan is gonna look at. And one of the things we're not gonna do is raise the rent. I've been a landlord before, and you need to not do it that way. You need to have in your mind, and just like if you have a buyer's consult, you try to work with your buyer and let them know of everything that's gonna happen. Well, when you have a renter's consult and you bring in on a tenant, you know, you need to, whether it's in the lease or, you know, at least you plant the seeds in their mind that, you know, the state of Florida, you could say it that way, but it's really anywhere. You can say, you know, rent typically goes up each year. And so you kind of get that in their minds that when you're raising the rent, it's not a negative thing. I've talked to a lot of people said, you know, I've got the greatest tenant, you know, they've been there 10 years, so I never raised the rent because they're so good. I didn't want to lose them, you know? And so, you know, even great tenants understand business a little bit. And again, you don't necessarily have that conversation because the thing about tenants is in their mind, they're not planning on staying there 10 years. And they can say they're 15 years and you've heard them staying there 20 years and 30 years, paying off your whole mortgage for you. And if you had that conversation, then you're like, no, don't expect me. I'm only here for a year because I'm going to buy my own next year. I'm going to do this. But as it turns out, they stay a long time. So, all right. So here's kind of the math. And this is going to be as tough as it gets. We're going to have property one. We're going to pay $80,000 on a loan. Just kind of the ground rules. We said we're going to calculate that $4,000. Just going through the 12 months making payments, we're going to pay down $4,000. And then with the positive cash flow of rent over cost is going to give us $4,800. So we're saying at the end of year one, we're going to owe $71,200 on our $100,000 property. Okay. So far, so good. So another thing we're not taking into account is we're still calling it a $100,000 property. We bought it last year. Had it this year, it wouldn't be a $100,000 property, right? It's gone up quite a bit in value, but we're not even gonna play that game. We're gonna keep it simpler than that. So year two should make the same thing, although let's look at what we're doing. Year two, $4,000 loan pay down. Property one has $4,800 income. Property two has $4,800 income. We're putting both of those $4,800 on property one. So here we are, year two, and we're only owing $57,600 on our $100,000 property. Pretty cool, huh? Moving quick. Just like when we were paying off debt, we were moving everything to the top, right? And just paying them off one at a time. Well, that's what we're going to do with our homes as well. We're going to use that same thing. So at the end of year two, we're only doing the loan pay down on property two, so we still owe $76,000 on it. So if we go to year three, it's just the same thing, okay? So now we got the $4,800 positive cash flow. We're buying all three of those properties income to the first one. So end of year three, we're down to $39,000 that we owe on it, and the others we're just chipping away at those at $4,000 a piece, okay? All we're going to do is now just go through this same thing for 12 years. So just like sometimes you hear compound interest when you hear of different things, it's working the same way here. So at the end of year four, we only owe $16,000 on the first property, chipping away on the others. See what happened at the end of 5 years. It says we owe negative $12,000 on our first property. So that means we paid off the first property and we got $12,000 cash. So what are we going to do with that $12,000 cash? Put it on property two, right? So we look at property two, and it had $4,000 just from paying down debt, but we got $12,000 on it. So you see what we're doing? We're just going to follow that pattern all the way through. So end of end of year 6, free and clear on one property. We only have 8,400 on the second property. Okay, and then properties 3 through 6, we're just chipping away at. Year 7. Moving on my screen there. So year 7, we got 40,000 to the good on property 2. So we paid it off and we got 40,000 now that we moved down to property 3. So we're just chipping away at the rest of it.
You're actually paying off faster by doing it this way.
You're paying a month a lot faster, right? And so again, if we're talking about, you know, creating that financial freedom, you know, that passive income, we haven't taken a penny of passive income yet, you know, and we're already in year 8. So this is kind of, it's like, but hang in there because the numbers are going to explode, you know, in a few more years. And then when you get through with that, then that's where you're going to be good. So again, property 3 now after year 8 has, what's that say, 44,000. It goes to the next one. So the end of year 9 on property 4, we paid it off and had 63,000 left over. And we paid off property 5 with that 63,000, then we had 3,600 left over. Okay. All right, the year 10. Now, why should we stop buying properties at the end of year 10? You know, for this class, we're going to stop. You don't have to stop. But if we stop at year 10 and we look, we've already got really 6 of them now are free and clear. No, 7 of them are free and clear. And we've got 18,000 now that we can put on the next one. So it's really kind of, you know, spiraling there at the end, isn't it? All right. So in year 11, we've really got 8 properties paid for. In year 12, now we've got all the properties paid for and 36,800 left over. So if we truly do stop buying properties at that point, then we now own outright 10 properties free and clear. If we haven't gone up on rent, we got 10 properties, we're getting $1,300 a month on, so that's $13,000 a month now, passive income. And we could say we own $1 million worth of property, but again, that's saying that 10 properties have never appreciated, okay?
No, but if you think about it and the appreciation that this is just stagnant, right?
This
So
is,
if you look at, as realtors, knowing the market, knowing where people are going towards, then this is only an upswing for you.
Yeah.
At that point.
absolutely. So yeah, I mean, property 4 could have had an air conditioner break, right? Paid $5,000 to put in a new one. It's okay. You know, when I look at the end result, I'm fine doing that, you know? And so yeah, just look at it. So yeah, are we getting 13,000 a month, you know, in 10 years, 12 years from now, instead of 1,300, you know, probably getting over 2,000 a month, that's, you know, 200,000. So again, we're kind of keeping it all in today's money, you know, because again, you know, in 12 years, I'm, you know, bringing in 250,000 a month, may only buy the same thing that 156,000. I mean, 200,000 a year, 250,000 a year may only be buying what 156,000 a year is buying today, but still very nice when this is not even your job, right? This is your passive income. So now you're looking at your levels of financial freedom because, you know, maybe you're, you know, in 12 years, add that to whatever your age is. For me, could be retirement age, you know. For you, could not be retirement age, but could be, hey, am I still loving real estate? You probably are, and you probably keep working. Or you may say, you know, I've always wanted to do this, but this wouldn't pay the bills for my family. But now that my bills are paid for my family, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go, I want to create a charity. I'm going to work in a job that I would love to do. For me, it might be, you know, I had a friend of mine that just, he liked boating like I did. He got to a level of financial freedom. He drives the ferry boat at Disney, you know, to take you to the Magic Kingdom. That's his happy place, no pun intended. But you know, that's really what he loves to do. And so he's doing that. He doesn't have to worry about how much money he gets paid to do that. You know, he's just doing what he's happy doing. So that's what financial freedom can
That's a
do.
great
So,
story.
but things not considered, and we've talked about a lot of these, but those homes are appreciating. Can anybody explain what depreciation is? Any of you that are investors? Did you know about that before you started investing, and was it a pleasant surprise? Didn't know about it? For me, I'll admit I didn't really know about it. I sat down with my accountant the next year because my primary business was my software company. I bought a commercial building, which was a pretty big ticket item. And when I did my taxes the next year, I'm like, what happened? You know, they're like, well, you bought a building and it's depreciating. I'm like, really? I thought it appreciated. And seriously, this was the conversation. I wasn't a realtor. And they're like, no, you get to take depreciation, which is an accounting imaginary thing that just saves you money. And I'm like, well, I like it. And then the whole time my building was gaining in value, but I got to, and I've got a little calculation I'm going to show you on depreciation, and I'm not an accountant.
The
So,
depreciation basically is the value of the asset divided by what has been established to be the useful life of the asset.
that's
And
right.
it's a deduction. However, you gotta be careful because when you sell the property,
Yeah,
as you know, unless you can play with loss, capital loss and things like that, it can be a dangerous thing to
It
make
can
a
be.
depreciation.
and that's
I
why
always
there's,
tell people.
and that's why there's 1031 exchanges and all these things too. So yeah, once you get in that, it can get, complicated, but it's still good. And get a CPA that knows about real estate and all these things, and you'll be okay. But yeah, you need to know some gotchas, and so that's 301. That's not in 201. So obviously, you're going to build in rent increases, and so you should be able to follow the market and do that. And that's what again, you've got to. If you treat it as a business, then you're going to have rent increases. If there's some people's personalities that makes them nervous and they don't want to be confrontational and they won't do it, and then they never go up on. And it makes a big difference over the years. Just like we saw how at the beginning, it was like, okay, I see what we're doing. And it's like, whoa, year 5, one's paid off. What's going on? Then we got the year 9 and 10, and they were just, man, it was snowballing. But you can do the same thing if you run it like a business and do your rent increases and all that. Some people manage it themselves, but if it's not, for it to be passive, you need a property manager. So that's another cost that we didn't get into on this. But again, when we had our commercial building and everything we had, we managed ourselves. And so my wife and I were kind of a team. So in both of our businesses and this. And so we just kind of found out what we were good about, and we just self-did that. And that's not from everybody. My dad was in construction, so I grew up being handy and could do things. And so I've done some flips and all of that. But again, that's something you need to consider when you look at doing this. What else? For those that have invested, what else is kind of outside the scope of what we're doing here? Both positive or negative.
You talked about the air conditioner.
I always put 10% towards repairs.
Yeah.
As a basic.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, talk to people that do it.
Yeah.
Talk to people. I have this morning I met with one of my clients that has a lot of rentals. And we visited some of his rental, and I said, how much does the tenant pay here? And it brings up to what you said. He said 1,000. I look at him, he said, I know. He
Yeah.
said, I know I could get 1,200, 1,300. But he said, Nicole, I've calculated my cost to turn a tenant around.
Yeah.
And it cost me $3,000 every time, because he's got a management company. He's got to give them a month of rent. And sometimes he's a month without tenant in there. He's got a clean bank. So he said, it cost me $3,000 to change. So if I raise $200 a month, I'm gonna get 2,400 and it's gonna cost me 3,000, and my tenants are awesome.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's to talk with
Sometimes
other
it's-
people that have been doing it,
Absolutely,
that
great.
gives you a lot of insight.
Yeah. What else? Anything else you think of?
Well, The challenge right now is to find properties that will fit into the return ratio.
Yeah, because we have a cap on rent also here in Englewood, just like we have a cap on value of property, so, yeah. But the number work at 150 all day long in our market.
So yeah, maybe you're looking at, 150 for purchase price, and then, if you added 50% of the rent, that'd be 1950. I'm sure you can do that, but if you could, then all these numbers just work. And actually, the more expensive the home, more expensive the rent, the more, the passive income, and the more value you're creating in the end as well. But not only, this got me super excited. I'm going to do this for myself. But what if do you have clients that you think this could work for, that maybe are ready to go right now? What if you had 4 or 5 clients that you could show this to and they were excited about it? So then you're thinking, well, I got 4 or 5 clients committing to buy a house a year for 10 years. Pretty sweet, right? That building your real estate business as well. So yeah, you're doing this and you're saying, hey, it works for me. Or you may even say, I'm going to do this. I'm not ready yet. But let me show you something that'll work for you. This neat concept. You may already be an investor, but you probably never looked at the numbers this way, or you never thought about it working this way. I think even a seasoned investor is looking at this and just thinking of all the things we're not talking about, but they're not like, oh yeah, it never worked. They're going, this would definitely work. But yeah, there's all these things that we're not talking about that's gonna be more expensive, but there's all these things we're talking about that's better, than what you're showing, because properties do appreciate. Depreciation does save you a lot of money on taxes. So with the tax savings, you're getting, quicker to your next down payment for your next property. So yeah, if you use this for yourself and then you use this to teach your investor clients, or if your client says, yeah, we're thinking about investment property, boy, every time I hear that, I'm like, let me show you something,
I
And
think
so,
this is such a great idea, what he's saying right there. Do we have that? Do we have?
I'll be glad to share this with you, because, I didn't do every little slide for your handout, because I just wanted you to kind of get the gist of what's going on.
I
But,
think that if we would have the slide that you just showed, the 10 properties through the 10 years,
yeah,
I think just that, to share that with clients is very powerful. And
I also think that at closing, we give so many closing goods, and then at some point we do this. There's good consideration of giving the MREI with this and saying, congratulations on buying your home. Now it's time for you to think about some residual income,
yeah,
right? And kind of walk through what that means and
Yep.
see how powerful that would be as a closing by helping them earn more money.
absolutely.
And now you're the person that brought it to them, and you'll be their consultant.
Yeah, because
if we could have this in a bigger format.
yeah. And again, I'll give you this, I'll give you that electronically, so you can, or I'll send it to Danielle, and so that you can take that. And yeah, blow it up, make it, put your logo on it or whatever you want to do, and then, go from there. So that's what, when Paul did it, a couple of years ago, I was just making notes, and then I went back and I was like, nobody talked to me, I got to recreate this. So I created the PowerPoint, and then just like the Dave Ramsey, just every time I hear something, I'm like, oh, I'm going to add that to my presentation and everything. And so that's how this is developed, just over the few times that I've taught it. But to me, it's gold. And I just was thinking about myself, and I just started, then I would hear my client just be sitting there. It's like, I'm thinking about starting to invest. And I'm like, let me show you something. And so it's like, and I usually don't show them the debt-free thing. I just start right here. And then, but if they say something like, oh, I've got way too many credit cards, it's like, okay, because that's what, when Paul left the room, I went home, and we took a few months and got our debt,
So
paid
push
off.
that with a little bit more ideas, because I like ideas. But what you just said, having 4, 5 customers that are doing that, imagine that if you really, really get this internalized, and then you organize in this office here, a little investor seminar, and you limit it to, I can only take 10.
Yeah.
Hurry up and get in here.
So.
And then you tell the hotel people, I'm gonna help you buy those properties,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
Mike, I like that you did the Dave Ramsey part first and you showed how paying off the lowest debt first. Cause it totally follows the plan for the next level.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right, and I never put that together before, but it really follows.
Yeah, you just kind of internalize that, like you were saying, and then, you know, it just flows right into this.
And it's so true about compound, like you said, when I never thought about taking my original properties and the profit from there, just directly paying it off, right? And not moving it until it's paid off, as opposed to what I've done before. I have a percentage that goes here and there, and it takes longer. You
Yeah.
know, all my properties that have paid off like 2 or 3, 2.5 are paid off, but this way is a lot faster if I were to kind of retool.
Yeah.
And not look at how to reinvest some of the profit earnings somewhere else other than focusing on paying off my properties.
Yes.
So yeah, this is all kind of going on in the background.
Yeah.
You're not saying, well, I can slack on my real estate business. I don't have to build it because I get this money coming in. You don't do that. You're kind of like, okay, in 12 years, I may reevaluate what I do for a living and how hard I work. But for the next 12 years, I'm going to have all this going on in the background. I'm going to build a killer real estate business, just like I was planning to do all along. And I'm still going to work with buyers and sellers and work hard and build that. And then that's building while this is building at the same time. And then you start to see some of this financial freedom.
Well, what does Keller Williams teach us, right? If you want to get good at something, what do? Teach it. You teach it, right?
Yeah.
And you teach it. And what better way, like Nicole said, get from your clients and teach to them.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
So again, for those curious about depreciation, just like she said, and so if you have $150,000 property and the land is worth 50, then you really only take the building value, the home value of 100,000, even though together they're 150. You use the 100,000 as a basis, and then you divide that by, again, an IRS made up number of 27.5 years. You know, that's supposed to be the life of the home. And so that's 3636.36 that basically would just come off of your income for the year. So whatever tax rate you're at, that's how much taxes you would save for that one property. And if you had 10 of them, then you'd basically, you know, and go for that. So that's what she was saying. You know, there's some gotchas even on that. If you sell it after 5 years, then your depreciation, you know, it get with your accountant. But all right, so just in review, again, we got to in our, you know, out of our primary income, we're going to pay 20% down, $5,000 in closing costs. So really, if you buy 10 properties, then you're going to have $250,000 that's, you know, came out of your pocket to put into this over 10 years. But you'll own free and clear, you know, properties that $1 million is going to be way off, right? Probably be double that. And if you don't increase the rent, then that's $156K a year. So if you add that in passive income, then, you know, you can even think what that could do to your, you know, your budget you have now. And again, that number is also going to be way more than that. So you may not be ready to buy your first property now, but I would go ahead and set yourself, like you're a buyer, so set yourself up on a MLS, maybe find an area you're interested in, start watching the property, start knowing that. I mean, you know, if you see a property that came on the market and it was 110,000, and that just, of course, sounds low, but if it was 150,000, how do you know that's a good deal for that area? If you cover a bunch of areas, find the one you want, get to know that market super well. And then when the right one comes up, you'll know. But again, to me, back when 100,000 was a real number, you know, I always say this when I'm with my buyers, back in the old days, like 6 months ago. But, and I always say that, but that's really what it is. You know, the properties I was looking at for 100,000 wouldn't bring in 1,300 a month. And so I was like, I've got to do better. I need to be buying $130,000 house for $100,000 to get that 1,300 a month. So that means I got to dig deeper. I can't just say, ooh, I just deposited my last bid. I've got the 20% and the closing costs. Let's go buy a house this week. Let me see what's available. You know, it's not going to work that way, or the numbers aren't going to quite work as quickly. So always be looking. And I've also set myself up, and it's easy to do, but if you find there's tons of wholesalers out there that are always, you know, sending off market properties. So if you set yourself up on those, then you can find some deal. Now, if you got investor clients, if you're not ready to buy, they may be. And so you're offering them something else there too. Because any realtor can give them something on the MLS. And the thing with off-market properties, anybody dealt with those before? Off-market property is going to be cash or hard money lender. So you might have to work out something to get with a hard money lender, then get with a regular lender that will allow you to refinance. So again, a whole nother thing there. But if you're going to look at it that way, then look at that. Also, you need to know the rental rates in an area too. So if you're buying a home, make sure that's going to meet your rental rate bill. And there may be certain areas that appreciate more than others right now. They're all appreciating incredibly, right? So that's not as hard as it would be. Here's a real example though that I got, well, February 17th of this year, I received this. Okay, this was from a wholesaler in Orlando. Now this was a condo, which wasn't really my target, but 87.5, see what the rent is at the bottom? So they're already getting 1,300 a month. So that one stood out to me. Just when I saw 1,300, I'm like, whoa, and that's better than 100,000. So
It's like a condo dudes.
I know, it's got an HOA.
it's got an HOA that's gonna jump in there and hurt. So, but you know, then usually when you do when you get this from a wholesaler, then they'll give you comps. So there's one that just sold for 140 in the same in that same thing. So that would mean when I buy it, it's gonna need some work, right? But again, according to your personality and your experience, you know, you might say, you know, mine would probably say because of the condo, but other than that, you know, I've flipped houses before, so I would get excited about that because I know how much value that I can add just by going through and redoing a kitchen or a bathroom or something. And, you know, most investors, I deal with a lot of investor clients, and most of them, they would say, they don't do their own work. They're like, I can make a lot more money investing in homes and buying and just hiring somebody to do the work. So you don't have to do the work if you're going to, rehab this a little bit. And the interesting thing about it, this one didn't, but a lot of times you get these from investors. They know to appeal to buyers and really even realtors that they usually give you an ARV, it's called, so after renovation value. So on this one, they may say 87.5 ARV 104 or 140, but a lot of times they'll say ARV for a hold is this, and ARV for a flip is this. So in other words, if I bought this for 87.5, I might have to put 30,000 into it to get 140. Okay, but if I'm gonna just bring a renter in, I may only have to put 10,000 in. So I may not. If my appliances are working, I may not go with all new appliances or this and that. So again, sometimes they'll go ahead and spell that out for you. Now, something to know too is most wholesalers on something like that, when they send this out, it'll have a note in there, kind of like a FSBO does. Agents welcome, but add your commission to that. So if you're going to send this to to somebody else. A lot of times with investors, you just say, hey, I get 3%, we add it to the price of that. That way you send it to them like this. And I talked to a real estate attorney, and that was his preference, to go ahead and just have that agreement with your investor clients. But you can, go on there and just mark that price out and edit it to that price plus 3%. Do that and send it to your investor clients to do that. But, just whatever you want to do. So any questions on that? Thoughts? No, we're pretty much out of time, but pretty much out of slides too. So it's working out. So yeah, just any questions or ahas from the day.
I just have a statement. As the chair of the growth committee, this is exactly the type of things that we want to be discussing. And we actually have our growth committee tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. I'd love to see you all there.
I will see you then.
And we do plan on organizing monthly coffees where we're going to be discussing this. This will be in addition to our committee meeting. Love to see you all there.
Anything else? All right. Well, I hope you become successful investors and or make your clients successful investors. And I really enjoyed the opportunity to be here, break from my day to day. I'm here. I'm gonna probably look.
So thank you very much for coming. Just want to give you some last minute house notes. One is please put your boxes in the kitchen. I would be very grateful if you didn't leave your boxes here that they have for lunch. Tomorrow we do have team meeting. Lunch will be served again, so come with empty tummies. We'll send out an email with our committees that we'll be having tomorrow as well. Agent financials will be happening on Friday. It'll be in Sarasota at the Lakewood Ranch office. There was an email with the event right on that as well. Kevin Jones, he's the operating principal out in Houston. I personally was a phenomenal human being. He was a team leader now, just like team leader out Clear Lake. He was doing such a great job. Gary Keller went to him and said, will you be the operating principal for me at this market center? Because Gary Keller owned that market center. So now he's the operating principal of that market center and another one of Gary's as well. So he happens to be, he's doing some things and we were able to connect. And so he's flying in on Thursday to teach in St. Pete. And then he offered to teach us here. So he will be teaching us. We're doing a lot more stuff with Lakewood Ranch because we really are sister offices and we want you to have an opportunity for y'all to network with each other. And so sometimes we'll be having trainings over at Lakewood Ranch, and then sometimes we have trainings here when we do have combined opportunities with presenters. This time we'll be over at Lakewood Ranch just because he's staying down the street from them. And then we'll have another training here in the future with another person who'll be flying in. Just let you know, St. Pete had canceled their training with him on Thursday, okay? So he will still be here. He is doing a KPA with someone. So if there's an opportunity, would any of you guys be interested in doing a mastermind with him here in the market center on Thursday? It's super last minute, just kind of gauging people's opportunity.
On financials or on?
It'll be a traditional mastermind where you come in, you write down what we want to discuss, and then we go through them and we discuss them as a group. Would anyone be interested in that?
I'd be interested. I need to double check and see.
Because in the 12th this week.
Yes, because it's last minute, because it was just it's a recent opening that he had, and so I'm just gauging. So it's super last minute. If y'all are interested, also, well, maybe there was a couple of people that were interested in it. You're tied to that, but that might be something that you're interested in. I'll send it out to everyone. Either it'll be here, or he just might not have it all, and he'll just hang out in Florida and then come and teach on Friday. So it's just an opportunity that presented itself as of this morning. So, we roll the punches here at KW.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Okay. Also, as most of you know, we are raising money for the Renfros. And one of the things that we are doing is the what do we call it? The alcohol wagon mobile thing. So don't forget to go to your favorite liquor store and give us your favorite unopened bottle of liquor. And Luz was gracious enough to give us 2 wonderful bottles for us to put in the wagon, so that we can auction off. Our goal is to raise $3,000 this month and $6,000 next month, so be on the lookout for other opportunities to really help them through KW Cares as they're going through a really tough time.
Bring cash.
Yes.
Yes. Did you want to talk about, we'll talk about.
Yeah, yeah. All right, thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Thank you for coming.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Wait, for what, for the retro? We do not have it set for tomorrow, but I will tell you.
I don't know that I can. Hold on, let me look at